Kids, I'm back doing my vlog for August 13th, 2018. I haven't done a vlog in a very long time. Most of my videos have been subject-oriented. I went back, I was feeling like Donald Trump today, and I decided I wanted to see myself on TV. So I turned on my YouTube on my television, and I reviewed some of the vlogs and some of the videos I've done in the last couple of years just to see where I've been, which is why I do these to begin with. And it was disturbing to the point of tears to see myself in so many different situations and so many different levels of medication, and seeing myself without voices in my head, with 3 voices in my head, or back to my old self when I had 7 voices in my head. And I was so comfortable when I had 7 voices in my head. No matter how much medication I was on, I just felt organic and real. And now I look like I'm just wasting away. I'm pasty, which I can't get over. I'm getting ready for Halloween. I'm trying to get as gaunt and as pasty as possible for Halloween so I can be my own spook. I even looked at a video I made for comedy right around the time that the French Prime Minister came and his wife, and or when Donald Trump went to France. I remember one of those trips, and I nailed it. I totally nailed it. I was just being outrageous, but life is imitating art. Scary. So let's go on this journey. I went and had these tests done. I already got a new diagnosis. I have ulcers. Ew. Like nobody has time for that. I have several of them, looks like. Some of them look a little rough. They also found things that they wanted to remove and test or take samples of. And they took 7 samples or test things. They cut 7 things out of me for testing, and I find out all that stuff on the 22nd of August. So I'm bracing for that. I also had a HIDA scan done on my gallbladder. That was a long hour on my back, and I wasn't getting paid by the minute, so you know that wasn't fun. What else? Oh, I finished my collection of diners in my area. And boy, have I had some interesting breakfasts. I went to this one place, and it's been around for a long time. It's very well established. It has a very, very, very loyal, very regular crowd, which comes every single day. It's like living in somebody. When you walk in, it's like going to grandma's house, or great-grandma's house, actually. A great-grandma that doesn't dust at all, and probably hasn't in 25, 30 years. Some stuff looks like it's frozen in place. It kind of reminds me of being taken to a haunted location, or a supposedly haunted location that's just old. The place wasn't haunted, it just was old. And not kept. And let's just say the waitress, when she came out with my menu, being the nasty old queen that I am, I caught a glimpse of her and looked her up and down, and I thought, oh, she looks like a 14-year-old boy doing drag for the first time. That's exactly. She looked like a gangly, skinny, awkward 14-year-old little sissy doing drag for the very first time, and kind of excited about it because she was wearing glitter. So yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, glitter eyeshadow that didn't match her outfit or go well with her skin or enhance her face in any way, shape, or form other than to capture my my bitchy attention. The meal was repulsive, and the coffee was the worst I probably had ever, anywhere. And I drink instant at home, so that'll give you, the bar level of what we're talking about here. Yeah, I drink cheap instant coffee at home. And it was horrible. And I got exactly 1 block away from the restaurant, slammed on the brakes on my truck, threw open the door, threw up the whole breakfast, and then went to my regular place and ate. So that was one place. The last place I went used to have one location really close to my house, and that shopping mall is kind of closing up, so they moved to a location closer to my, like right across the street from my car dealership and almost right across the street from my imaging on last Tuesday. So I had to starve for that. And after the imaging, there was no reason I shouldn't eat because I hadn't in over 14, 16 hours, and I needed to take my morning meds. So I stopped at this diner. It gave me an excuse to see what it was like. And all I can say is this. Modern day restaurants or businesses of anything, of any sense, that want to make money and don't want to have charged reviews, should I say, should probably not play, let's say, Fox or MSNBC on their televisions. They should probably just stick with something like we have. It's called Bay News 9. It's kind of innocuous. It doesn't, I mean, it leans a little bit right, but not obnoxiously so, that it's not offensive to watch. You can get past it, and they stop the news every 10 minutes to give you the weather. And they got to throw in a couple Hanyak local yokel commercials. So there's very little news. It's mostly weather and commercials. and a few headlines. And a few local stories that'll just make your hair curl because it's Florida. But anyway, this particular place decided, and again, it's an established business. It has a following. They seem to stay relatively steady. I walked in, I couldn't figure out possibly why. It was an ugly space that they had moved to. They did nothing to enhance it. They had Fox News playing on the TV that faced out from the counter. I happened to place myself at the counter to eat. I was there only a few minutes when some ridiculous news story came on that I wasn't paying attention to because I don't watch Fox News. And this man, who was sitting a couple seats away from me, decided to jump to his feet and get angry, loud and verbal anger, and pointing at the television set and screaming at it. And so, of course, you cannot ignore that. And I noticed quickly by glancing around that everyone in the room got very quiet, very still. The people that had guns, you could tell, like, put their hand where their gun would be. A woman put her hand in her purse, which is dangerous because I'm not an NRA fan. And I'm not a fan of, like, let's bring your gun to breakfast, because you shouldn't have to, and it's ridiculous because someone can get hurt. So this guy jumps up, and he's screaming at the television, and his point was that the damn liberals don't want any borders at all. They're just for complete open borders. All the immigrants, they want the whole world to move here, and they want unlimited amounts of crime. Now, that's something that Fox News has been pushing, I guess, for a while, because I've heard it in other conversations, and frankly, it's preposterous, because I know a lot of liberals, and I've never once heard anybody say, let's have completely open borders and completely lawless, and let's get a lot of criminals and have a lot of violence and muggings and robberies and murders and rapes. No one's ever asked for that, not from any political persuasion that I'm aware of, at least. So the whole idea on its face was preposterous. And the fact that he's jumping up, pointing at the TV, talking to an inanimate machine is even more preposterous. And the fact that he cannot control his emotions at his age, and his age looked to be approximately 40-ish, was even more that was even more disparaging, should I say. it was disparaging to him, and it was disparaging to the American people. I hate that term, but disparaging to the American people and the Fox watcher. If you cannot watch TV, especially a TV that's designed to scare you and upset you, and you cannot help yourself but to stand up and get angry and scared and pissed. So, yeah, that was beyond surreal. Then I looked at the menu, and the menu had a Mexican omelet. Now, I'm going to give you a second, pause the tape, and write down on a piece of paper, what do you think a Mexican omelet is? And when you have those actual ingredients down, hit play again and I'll tell you what the Mexican omelet was, because I ordered it. Now, are you ready? Okay, you got your menu. You have this beautiful breakfast in your mind, the Mexican omelet with your choice of the kind of potatoes you want, and one of the rare things from my area is you get your choice of white, wheat, or rye bread. Imagine that. You get a choice of all three. They don't charge you 45 cents extra for 2 slices of rye bread because it's premium. So that's a pretty good deal. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all. So I ordered this thing, and I ordered a Mexican omelet with hash browns. Hash browns well done, crispy. Rye toast, coffee, and water. That's what I ordered. And then I watched the service completely fall apart while I waited far too long for my meal based on the amount of staff there and the amount of customers. The staff to customer ratio was pretty hefty. I mean, there was quite a few staff for the amount of customers, and the waits and the confusion and the ridiculousness was just far beyond anything that should happen to, quote, normal white folks. It was a total clusterfuck. But they muddled through. Finally, I got my breakfast, and I was hungry. The coffee was okay. It wasn't the best cup of coffee I had. It wasn't the worst, like the last restaurant I told you about. It was all right. The water was okay. They even put a lemon in it without asking me, which I kind of give them a point for that. I would have given them 2 points if they put a lime in, but I digress. So this Mexican omelet shows up. The hash browns are uncooked. I mean, they threw them on the thing, they flipped them over, and they put them on the plate. They were barely warm. It was just ungodly. It was awful. The omelet was this, you had a choice of a 2-egg omelet or a 3-egg omelet. And for an extra 50 cents, you could get the 3-egg omelet. But if you bought an egg just by itself, it was like $1.09. So it was theoretically of value if you got the 3-egg omelet. Now, I've had 2- and 3-egg omelets all over town. And for example, one of their competitors has a 2-egg omelet that's huge and fluffy and delicious because they put it in this like blender machine, the 2 eggs, and it frosts it up. So then when they make the omelet, it's really airy and fluffy. It's delicious. I have my favorite diner, which doesn't do that, but they have long, thin kind of omelets that fill up the whole plate with stuff inside or on top. This was a thin, short omelet with vegetables mixed in, and when I mean vegetables, I specifically mean some green peppers and tomatoes and maybe some onion that was cooked in the omelet, baked in the omelet, or fried in the omelet, whatever, then closed, and then a ladle of chili, like Texas kind of chili, but it actually was, it was like Hormel chili, because it kind of tasted like, it didn't taste homemade, it didn't taste like their own unique brand, it didn't taste like anything. It tasted like canned chili, cheap canned chili. And then, like, they took a slice of American cheese and made it into 3 slices and kind of laid it out and put a little pinch of raw onion on it, and yeehaw, we're in Mexico. I've been all over Mexico, everywhere. Oh my God, so many times. Not just Cancun and Los Cabos. I mean, and Tijuana. I mean, I've really been in Mexico. I've never had anything in Mexican cuisine that even closely resembled this mess on this plate. So I don't know what Mexican they ever met here, but they gave them some bad information. So that was another thing that's gone on. Let me see what else has happened. My favorite diner, the lady that owns it, she's Peruvian. She had shoulder surgery, and so she's kind of in and out. And she's trained one of the waitresses to cook, and she's doing a really good job. And the waitress is Asian American, and so she's already exotic for being here anyway in this white Wonder Bread world that I live in, sadly. And I got to go to the Korean spa, and man, what a relaxing sensation that was. And it was interesting because there was a lot of people there, and that made it fun because the couple of times I'd gone before, recently, it was just me and 2 ghosts. Usually there's just 1 ghost. There's the old guy ghost that just hangs out and doesn't like to be bothered. And he stays there because he doesn't want to deal with his naggy wife. And then I got a new ghost that introduced herself to me, and she called herself Thresher. That was her stage name, Thresher. She died young. She died like a little pampachera. And she was a stripper. And lo and behold, the building that this is now a Korean spa, many years ago used to be a strip joint. And she used to work there. And she died of a drug overdose. And her name was Thresher. And her daddy gave her that nickname when she was a kid because she had a tough fighting spirit. And it reminded him of catching a thresher shark or that's what she told me. So, never caught a thresher shark. I'm sure they put up a good fight, and I'm sure she was a tough little monster when she was alive, and she seems a little bit lost, and but not lost like she doesn't know where she is. She's feeling, she's starting to begin the sensation of regret. She's starting to look back on her life repeatedly in this loop she's living, and she's starting to realize that there was more to it than she made out of it. And it's going to be a long journey. She's not going to escape into the light anytime soon. She's got a lot of work to do. But I'm always pleasant. I've now seen her twice. The last visit and the visit before when she first introduced herself. But now she seems to like to come and talk to me because I'm the only one that can see her there. So even the old man avoids her. It's really strange how ghosts in the same space can just like not be on the same wavelength and ignore each other. It's interesting. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it's always unique to figure it out. And now I'm going to tell you a story. So I was down at the spa, and it was unusually busy. And usually if I'm there, I'm either by myself or there's 1 or 2 customers that will drift in or drift out, like right as I get there or right as I'm leaving. But usually I get mostly, it's quiet, and I like it that way. So I usually go when I know it's quiet. And Saturday evenings are one of those good days because everybody's out partying and they're not out spawing. And summer's slower here. There's less tourists and businessmen and all that kind of stuff. So it's usually a good bet. But for some reason, it seemed like everyone I'd ever met or seen or run across was all there on that day, or showed up or was leaving. So it was like this constant turnover of people coming and going and interacting. And I'm always accused of being like this really creepy old man that like the gatekeeper always tells me to mind my own business, because I'm really good at tuning into things that are going on across the room. I'm excellent at reading lips and hearing conversations. And I just get lost in what's going on because it's there. It's free entertainment. And I try to be discreet about it, but I really can pick up quite a bit of detail in a busy room in a very short period of time. And so I was just like, it was like going to Disneyland for me. It was wonderful. And baby, stop crying. Sorry, my little dog, she's old and she likes to cry at night before she goes. She just wanders around moaning. She's getting ready to die. So, sorry about that. So I was having this wonderful time at this like Disneyland event, which is usually a quiet thing for me to just sweat and get rid of the excess toxins in my body from all the medications I take, and pump myself full of fresh water and kind of churn, as we called it in the business back in the day. Just take the clean and force it out through the pores. Put the clean water in and force the crap out through the pores. We used to call it the churn. So I was there getting my churn on, my body whip, and towards the end, I had there was like these 3 guys that were sitting talking in the jacuzzi a lot, and they were they looked to be like late 20s, early 30s, and that's actually what they ended up being. They were age range from about 27 to about 31, I think, 32. And completely different backgrounds, completely different body types, completely different sets of issues in their own lives. And 2 of them were kind of competing for being like the most intelligent traveler, I guess, because they were comparing experiences with Greece and trying to challenge each other like they had really gone or something. I don't know. It sounded kind of weird to me. But I kind of tuned in and tuned out. I didn't really care. I wasn't there for them, and they weren't there for me, so it didn't matter. But I had been in the steam room, and I left the steam room, and I knew it was getting time for me to leave because my body was just worn out, and I'd been doing this for a couple of hours, doing these full body whips where I get really, really, really hot, really, really, really sweaty, and then I jump in this cold dunk pool and get really chilled, super chilled, and then repeat. I go out, dry off, get some fresh water, and then repeat the process. Very good for the skin, very good for the psoriasis, very good for the arthritis, very good for everything. So I had gone out, and I took a quick spritz of a cold shower, and I decided to go in and just get myself just push myself to the edge before I left. So I went in, and the guys were talking, and they were laughing, and I had just left like a moment or 2 before, and I walked in and I had this puzzled look on my face because no one was telling a joke when I left. And the one guy says, "Oh, we're sorry. We were just talking about your tattoo. And we were just laughing about your tattoo." I said, "Oh, so which tattoo was so particularly funny?" And he said, "Oh, well, how did that romance work out with the tattoo on your ass?" "Oh," I said, And my great-grandmother came right to me, like right there. She said, "Teach." So I looked at these guys and I said, so, let me tell you about it. I said, you probably find it interesting. I said, how old are you guys? So they told me. I said, well, a lot has changed since I was young. And a lot has changed in my lifetime. Huge, because like we had dial phones when I grew up and there was no such things as smartphones, and there was no equal rights or gay rights or marriage equality or a whole bunch of shit. There wasn't computers or cell phones or things that you just take for granted. They didn't even invent Blockbuster until I was like in my late teens. So, mid, late teens, somewhere like that. So I've been and gone. A lot of stuff has just been and gone since I've been alive. And this particular tattoo that you're talking about, I got from my ex and from my godson. And the one that you asked me about earlier on my leg, for the same reason. I said, and the one on my arm, which I'll show you guys, on my left arm, I said, my ex and my godson and a friend, a mutual friend of all of us, we all share this tattoo. Now, the friend is closer to my godson and is my godson's good friend, and they both share it on their arm, but I obviously already have something there, so my ex and I share it on the left shoulder. And we couldn't get married. And we had a wonderful relationship, but we ended our relationship because of the distance, because they lived in Peru and I lived in Florida. And frankly, I just couldn't, and I stopped working for the airlines, and I couldn't afford the $700 a month phone bills because back then you had to pay out the nose for phone. And I couldn't afford to fly back and forth every week without a pass on an airline like I used to have when I worked for the airlines for 17 and a half years. So the only reasonable situation emotionally for me and for them was to end the relationship. But before we ended it, we had a beautiful relationship. And one of the things was that we got to travel the world and have fabulous vacations. And one of the surprises I gave him was a brand new car that never existed in that country, that I bought new in Florida, and I had shipped down on a boat and delivered on Christmas back in like 2001 or 2002. And it was the most beautiful, most luxurious car in Lima, Peru. Imagine that. And it didn't have anything to do with our relationship. It was just part of being in a serious relationship. And that's what you do. And when our relationship ended, he got to keep the car because I wasn't going to put it back on a boat and take it home because I already had a car. And I couldn't get him to move to the United States because there was no way. I couldn't marry him. I couldn't adopt him. I couldn't adopt my godson. There was no way to resolve the situation because we weren't afforded those rights. So when it came time for him to have a chance to leave, he sold the car and he used that money to move to Canada. And now he lives a good life and a secure life in Canada with a great job. And it's so good and so great that he was able to take his son, which is my godson, and move him to Canada. And he's in the process of immigrating. So it's actually a very romantic story, one that you were laughing at because we're not together, but yet we're still in contact and we're still very close, but we're separated because of fate and time and because that was our paths and we didn't know it. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't just this burning relationship that just burned up. It was something that had to happen for the best of all of us. So maybe before you point your finger and laugh at somebody, particularly somebody that's older and you might not understand what's going on, why don't you ask first? And they got silent. And I thought to myself, oh, bitch, you're so good. Because I could have told this story a whole nother way. I could have turned this into a tragedy that was just one big disaster and me being humiliated about having somebody's name on my ass and blah, 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 blah. But it's been there since like 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. You know, thank God the dementia's eating away the dates. That's the first thing dementia takes is the dates. So I know the time frame, but just not the date. But it was a teaching moment for them because they were so trite and so busy wanting to point and laugh at some old dude. And indeed, there was an inspiring story behind it. So that was kind of like, it made my day. It actually made my day that I got to tell the story of 3 of my tattoos, even though they were only pointing at one. So next time you get to see my ass, which very few people do, now you know. Have a good one.